The Witcher 3 is one of the greatest RPGs ever made, and the expectations for The Witcher 4 are extremely high because of that. But not too long ago, it was actually reported that CD Projekt Red are actually working on a new DLC for this fan favorite game, despite it celebrating its 10th anniversary not too long ago, which is a pretty insane thing for a developer to do for a single player game like this. But on top of the rumored DLC that's in the works, there have been some new details that have emerged about the upcoming quote-unquote final Witcher 3 update, as well as the highly rumored DLC, and today we're going to be going over absolutely everything you may have missed about it, including the size, the content, the potential release date, and more. So earlier this year, it was reported that there is indeed a new DLC in development for The Witcher 3 that is reportedly being worked on as a joint effort between CD Projekt Red, the franchise's main developers, and Fool's Theory, the developers of The Witcher 1 remake, which for those of you that didn't know, Fool's Theory is comprised of previous Witcher developers, so it's in pretty good hands. And from the sounds of it, CDPR is doing the main planning of the story elements, but Fool's Theory is doing the heavy lifting of the development itself, as well as some of the writing and whatnot, basically as a test run for them to get their feet wet in the Witcher universe before they unleash the Witcher 1 remake on the world. Now that is what the current rumor is. Obviously, we don't know the extent of Fool's Theory's development. They could be the ones that leading up the entire charge. Now, in previous videos, we talked about what this could mean for the canon plot of The Witcher 3 and how this new DLC could fit into things, but also the fact that the expectations are extremely high for this DLC. To put it simply, if the game is already peak, trying to add on to the game, it could end in disaster, so they have to be very careful about adding any new content to this game because of that reason. The Witcher 3 is known for its amazing DLC and expansions from CDPR themselves, so Fool's Theory does have a lot to prove as a quote-unquote new developer of the Witcher franchise. But again, they've worked on The Witcher before. They're comprised of previous CDPR developers, so I have a lot more trust in them. But either way, they're going to have to bring their A game if they're going to be directly contributing to one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And honestly, if they nail this DLC, that could be the big thing that cranks the hype for The Witcher 1 remake into oblivion. But if their DLC is underwhelming or just mid, people might start to lose faith in their remake. Now, it's also really important to note that CDPR does make the important distinction between a DLC and an expansion. According to them, an expansion is something like the big Blood and Wine for Witcher 3 or Phantom Liberty for Cyberpunk, while a DLC is something smaller like New Game Plus. Now, DLCs usually have substantial amounts of content, but they won't be quite as big as something you would expect from an expansion from them, which is fair since CDPR does have a reputation for releasing massive expansion packs for all of their single player games. So the upcoming Witcher 3 DLC is not going to be the same size or stature of something like Blood and Wine, but it's going to be a major addition to the game regardless, because it's adding new content. Obviously, we don't have the full details or anything like that, but if it adds anywhere near like 10 or even 12 hours of side content is pretty substantial. And honestly, if it is another developer doing it like Fool's Theory, which that's the rumor, I imagine they will also have a lot of side content, side missions, cosmetics, minor characters, and of course quality of life improvements, even though the game is already like really solid. Basically, this new DLC won't be changing the main canon story of The Witcher 3. I mean, it could, but I doubt that's gonna happen. There will definitely be a lot of new stuff though, which I think is a good thing to do for a game that's already been around for 10 years. So moving into the actual patch itself, something interesting actually happened recently in regards to The Witcher 3 and its future. CD Projekt Red was planning on releasing a major patch, the quote-unquote final update for The Witcher 3 that would add cross-platform mod support, but as the update was closing on its release date, CDPR actually decided to push it all the way back to 2026, which was a bit unexpected, but I have a feeling it was for good reason. In a statement on their website, the team stated this: "We originally planned to introduce cross-platform mod support for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S later this year, but now the rollout is shifting to 2026. We apologize for the delay, and we'll share more details as we get closer to the release. Thank you for your patience." So what happened here? This is a pretty major delay for a patch like this, and it's not totally out of character for CDPR to delay things for an extended amount of time. Like, I can already picture the yellow background with the black text with the Cyberpunk logo. You guys know what I'm saying? That yellow image gives me nightmares. Like, that was such a rough time. Just when we thought we were at the precipice of, CD Projekt Red releasing Cyberpunk, they just ripped it from us time and time again. But with this update being, mainly for mod support, something like this really shouldn't have been hit with such a a major delay, unless they're now making the cross-platform mod support part of this upcoming DLC. Now that right there is the going on, I guess we'll say, Fool's Theory. If Fool's Theory is working on the actual gameplay of the DLC and CDPR is working on the cross-platform mod support, it would kind of make sense to smash these two updates into one major like final content DLC. This would not only make it easier for CDPR to push the updates to the consoles, since pushing out one big patch on consoles is a lot easier than doing two smaller ones due to how, Sony and Microsoft do updates with their policies, but this also means they can increase the number of people on the game during the release window of the DLC. If you're a Witcher 3 player who's been waiting for cross-platform mod support, it would be CDPR's best interest to get you on the game at the same time as the major content drops. Now, there is a possibility that this is a paid DLC, which is very likely. And if that's the case, then they could, obviously release the free console mod support, which will get people on the game. And then on the menu, they'll see, oh, new DLC that's paid. Let me just go ahead and buy it. But this is CDPR we're talking about. I could easily see them adding new content to the game in terms of like a DLC story and just releasing it free to the public, which like they win regardless because it gets people who may not have like played The Witcher 3. It might give them a reason to, just go ahead and buy The Witcher 3 so that they could prepare for Witcher 4. And if the DLC is mainly containing content that does bridge the gap between The Witcher 3 and The Witcher 4, then that's really easy marketing for, The Witcher 4 and The Witcher 3. Like The Witcher 3 has 60 million, people that have purchased this game. So activating 60 million people to potentially replay The Witcher 3 before Witcher 4, or even spend money on a new DLC it just makes sense. Not to mention, this is the 10th anniversary of The Witcher 3, so it would also be really beneficial for them to, release the 10th anniversary console mod update, but also giving us, DLC at the same time. At the end of the day, you're much more likely to keep the hype train chugging if you release a ton of new content all at once. And it would be a pretty baller move for them to release the new DLC alongside the cross-platform mod support, because at that point, you're going to be bringing tons of people back into the fray and increase the buzz around your franchise. So while it might be a little disappointing for us to have to wait a few more months for the cross-platform mod support update, I really think the delay might be because they want to release it at the same time as the rumored DLC, in which case I'm more than happy to wait a little longer, since it'll mean the incoming content drop is going to be absolutely massive, at least we hope. But with the more or less confirmation that this upcoming rumored Witcher 3 DLC isn't going to be a major expansion, mainly because it was reported as a DLC, I think this also more or less confirms the fact that Witcher 3 is not done getting updates. They got one more in them. CDPR is establishing themselves as one of the best in the business for continuing to support their single player games. And if they're starting to roll out major content patches and mod updates for a game as old as The Witcher 3, I think it's safe to say that they're not going to stop here. If you look at all of the stuff that they've said in their actual investor reports, the way that they plan to, continue to make money and hit their revenue goals is by updating previously released games. So I don't know if we're going to be getting something like post-launch content like Cyberpunk 2077 did in terms of how many updates they've done for that game. But I don't think that the quote-unquote final update that's releasing next year is actually going to be the final update. I really do think this would be a great way for CDPR to keep the hype up for The Witcher 4 if they consistently release updates for The Witcher 3. Cyberpunk is nearing the end of its life cycle and the main CDPR team is working on The Witcher 4, so I think The Witcher 3 could potentially be their main focus when it comes to keeping their name in the spotlight during a major release drought. Granted, Cyberpunk was also getting patched frequently because it needed the patches for the sake of stability and bug fixes, but I really don't think this upcoming DLC for The Witcher 3 is going to be the last time it gets a major update, especially not as we inch closer to The Witcher 4 and The Witcher 1 remake. Now, as for what the DLC will contain, my guess is that it will be a bunch of side missions and smaller pieces of content that somewhat bridge the gap between The Witcher 3 and The Witcher 4. The content can't be so big that it would justify being an expansion, but it also can't be so small that people don't really care to give it a try. Will the DLC be Ciri focused? Or will it be, Geralt at the helm? That is the question that a lot of people want to know, if the DLC is even real. It also can't be so big that it impacts the established canon too much, but again, it can't be so small that people are underwhelmed by it. So if I had my guess, I would say that this DLC is going to be a bunch of side missions, maybe one main mission that is a lot longer, maybe like 10 hours long. I doubt we're going to be seeing any new locations or anything like that. I mean, we could, maybe ones that are important to The Witcher 4, but not so important to the context of The Witcher 3 that could, you know, change the flow of the story. Honestly, the new content should be about seamlessly fitting The Witcher 3 without changing too much. So yeah, some new side missions, maybe some new NPC dialogue that references various Witcher 4 locations, with the goal of bridging the gap and also, you know, adding more replayability. But that's going to wrap it up with this video, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future content. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.